Hello language learners. So today we're going to continue the video about vowels, and again I want to start with some of the thoughts I had while recording the previous video, but failed to include them because that would make the video too long. So probably some of you might have asked yourselves the questions like, why would we put these symbols for the vowels in these boxes? So what makes you put this in this exact box? It might sound like a strange question, but I mean, it actually makes some sense. Why? Because when we were talking about this E sound, you might have noticed that here the tongue is basically everywhere. Like if you look at the upper teeth and where the tongue is touching the upper teeth, you would see that for the sound E, the tongue would be all around, like all over the place. Like this whole thing would be the tongue for the sound E. Whereas for the oo sound, the tongue would just be here, right? And then what makes us able to put the E here and oo here? So to that I would say that it could be visualized in different ways. Again, the promised trick. So basically you could do this. You could just put these teeth over this table, over this box, and then kind of see how E is here, Russian oo is here, and oo would be here. So that's an important thing. But then what I would do to make it more clear for you, the point, I would just compare it to this thing that, right now I'm watching speed runs, and that's a very interesting thing, by the way. I never knew that existed. And speed runs is when the runner, he or she, they actually finish games very fast. Like they finished GTA, whatever, GTA Vice City, they finish it in like 8 minutes or something like that. It's amazing what they are able to do with all these glitches and some tricks right inside the game. Use some game mechanics to finish games faster. And then I was introduced to this concept. I never knew that existed. So basically there's this concept of a hitbox, and when I pronounce it a hitbox, I don't pronounce the t sound. I say hitbox, right? And then you can see some assimilation there. But the hitbox of a character or inside the game, right? This is this thing when, as you can see, the program sees the Mario character as just this square. Like all of these are not seen as Mario. Weirdly enough, if you touch anything in the game with these parts of the Mario character, then the game would think that Mario hasn't touched it. That's a very interesting, curious thing, right? And then you can also think of sounds as something having these kind of hitboxes. So the main focus of this or that sound would be in this or that place. And then you can do crazy things like when Mario has this hitbox. Actually, he's able to go in between the blocks from which the Mario world is built. And then he can actually even go through walls using that glitch kind of, or this game mechanic. But that's a very kind of interesting kind of a thing to be able to use that. But in order to achieve this kind of skill, you need to be able to feel the tongue very well in that for that matter, right? So. And then you can go to this guy's channel and you can watch all these speed runs, and that's amazing. I also remembered this childhood, like the game from my childhood that's called Elastomania, where so you can see a bike. Also, the point of the game is to hit all the apples and then hit a flower, and then you win the game. That's how old I am, literally. I used to play this kind of games, but then people still play that. The thing is that the hitbox for this guy, you would think that this is solid, and you should think about all the parts of his body, and then you could use all of them. But the interesting thing is that not all the parts of his body are in the hitbox. So here you can see that only the wheels and the head are the hitboxes for this bike. How is this related to phonetics, I wonder? But don't, check it out. So you can actually do all the weird tricks and even something like that. Just crazy stuff. This is why I love this game so much, because it was so kind of unnatural, but at the same time you could do so many cool tricks with it. If you don't think about the whole thing as an entity, but as you think, when you think about it as a number of hitboxes, so the points of focus, right? So that's what I was like, why I wasted 6 minutes of your lives to to explain that. Don't think about sounds as the whole thing. Just think about the essential focus points or focal points when you're trying to make them, right? And this is why we have these roots. And as you remember, e, and when you go to a, you release one of the hitboxes, and then you're stayed with just this one, which represents the forward motion of the tongue. Right. Lost everyone. But that's, I'm sorry for this long introduction, but this is kind of what you could try to visualize for yourselves. The sound could be visualized as this kind of a hitbox, right, in your mouth, the focal point. And then if you visualize it that way, it might be easier for you to become aware of the crucial factors that actually distinguish this sound from this sound. As you might remember, we were talking about these three sounds last time. So and how are they different? In a very tiny, small, little way, but then you can only be aware of that if you find a way to visualize it and control the separate operations that go into sound production. That's what the point of this whole introduction is. Right. Never mind that. That was just interesting to me. I don't know. If you find that interesting, you could also, ask a question or whatever. Right. So then why? Oh yeah, this is why it's a good idea to make presentations before you actually start talking, because look, this is a very interesting thing. When you speak Russian, you don't actually utilize this whole space. This is why we need these extra exercises, the strange ones, right? Like with the e, and a. Like, why would you do that? Why would I even be talking about these focal points? The reason is that, remember we drew the sound Russian in this table as well. Or why I drew this here. So there was this phonetician called Lev Vladimirovich Scherba. In English, I would pronounce it as Scherba. For reasons unknown, I would just pronounce the sound because his surname is literally spelled with this er, and then I would just pronounce this as an Sherber, right? That would be my way of pronouncing his surname, although I couldn't find any convincing evidence on how to pronounce the surname in English. Nobody really talks a lot about this guy, but he's a brilliant St. Petersburg school, Leningrad School of Phonetics, and he talked about this thing that when we talk about the system of vowels in Russian, we're talking about the Sherber's triangle, the so-called Sherber's triangle. And why are we talking about it as a triangle? Because the Russian vowel sounds, they basically form a triangle in the mouth. So here we have the Russian E, here we have the Russian E, here we have the Russian A, and here we have a Russian O, right? Or, and then U, and then we also have the U sound, which completes the picture of a triangle. And so this is the entire set of Russian vowels. But if you're attentive, you can see that there are some areas in the mouth that are completely untouched or unused when you speak Russian. Like, for these ones, we actually have some analogies. Like this sound, if you listen to the band Mumitrol, the Russian band, Ilya Lagutyenko, right? So when he says bat, открываешь глаза, and that stuff, thing, actually reminds me of the sound in the word cat, bat, and sat, whatever. But then like Russian people very rarely speak like that. That's a character. That's a beautiful and amazing character that he's playing in his music. But I wouldn't say that you just very often you pronounce the words like mama or papa. You say mama, papa, это мой папа, mama. Babushka, и так далее. I wouldn't say that you pronounce it this way. So, I mean, if you do, it's fine. Then let me know in the comments, okay? But the idea is that this would sound a little bit strange. It would sound a little bit like an accent, okay? But then for English, this is a normal pronunciation of the words like cat, bat, sat, mama, papa. But then they wouldn't pronounce mama and papa. They would probably say mama or mama. I would say that we would use this area more. So for this, we have some similar sounds from Russian and in some varieties of it. For example, you go like you would say and then you have certain association with certain people. But here, this area is sometimes kind of used. And today, we're going to talk about the area which is like totally never used when you speak Russian. And we're talking about this place in the mouth. What is happening here? And what could be happening here? Right? But then for English, this one is crucial. This is very important to discover this area. To go here, we need to put the tongue as much to the back as possible. And how are we going to do that? Right? So here's this root that we're going to dedicate this whole class to. And the first sound is this. As some of you might remember, we were talking about the varieties of this, of different kinds of sounds. This is Russian. This is there's this one, like that's a strange one between the and sh and somewhere in between. Also, there's this one, right? And none of these exist in the English language, just this one. And also, there's this one, which is here, right? What is this? This exists in Arabic, I guess, and Farsi, and I guess that's in a number of other languages. So this one, it's the sound try just imitating that in the comfort of your own home. Just go like it's very cold and you're trying to warm, just like that. Not, but what do you need to do to make this sound? You basically need to lower this thing here, the larynx. You need to lower it as much as possible. Just go, right? And then the tongue follows the larynx and moves all the way down. So the thing is that the tongue and the larynx and this place in the throat, they are kind of, they have this organic connection. If you move this down, the tongue follows and it moves down with it. So you need to make your tongue go in a place where it's actually never been before. You need to make it move all the way down here. So you need to, we need to get here. How do we do that? Just this sound first, and then you put the voice in this sound. So you go ha, ha, and then you get the sound ah. Do you hear the different quality of it? So you go ah, and then if I compare it with the Russian ah, and you go ah, 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 ah. Do you hear the difference? I mean, press like if you do. I mean, it's just weird. But think about that. They are very different. So ah, the Russian ah is kind of in here. It's in the middle. This is the Russian ah. This is the English ah. And here, if you move the tongue to the back, you go ah. If you look at the video now, you can see that you don't even see the tongue. It disappears. You just see the black thing, like the darkness of my mouth cavity. Spooky. But this is how it goes, right? You put the tongue as far back as possible in your mouth, and you get ah, something like that, right? Once again, ha, ah. Do you see? This is how you make it. And then to contrast that, you say Russian ah, and then you go ah, 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 right? You can notice that I'm moving my lips even, right? A little bit. So that's also a kind of a trick to contrast this, and now we have this ah, right? Okay. There's another trick. This has been a long video. This has been a very long video. 18 minutes already. The YouTube people probably have switched off by now. And those of you who are still here, you're probably very tired. So, can you just yawn a little bit? It's so boring. And then instead of covering your mouth like good, polite people, which you hopefully do in class when the teacher is boring, you actually hopefully cover the mouth. But for now, you're home and don't cover your mouth. Be honest about it. It's very boring. Just again. And instead of covering the mouth, put the hand here in this area on the larynx and things like that. Can you go again? And then do you feel that the larynx actually moves down? This is what you do. Once again. Alright. It's actually, I watched this interview with Morgan Freeman, and he was talking about why on earth does he have such a beautiful voice. And the guy actually said that he loves to yawn. And that's a very important part in working on your voice, is to be able to lower the larynx. So just doing that is a very good exercise. It might be not that comfortable at first, but it's very beneficial for your voice, because when you speak like Russian, mostly the larynx is all raised all the way up here because the tongue is in this area very much. It's in the middle and it's in the front. So here it is. The tongue is basically here. And then it makes the larynx raise a lot. And then if you try to sing like that or speak loudly like that, this is what you're doing. You're basically pressing your larynx into the things that are here, and it's not so good for the voice. This is why a lot of people, when they have to speak a lot and loudly, like teachers or interpreters, and if they don't have, if they don't know how to do it properly, how to control their own larynx and their own voice, they start to have some issues with their vocal cords, and that can lead to problems. So if I were you, I would focus on this sound very much in English to learn to lower the larynx. That's kind of a good idea, to start with the ha, ah, and then if you're then able to hold the same kind of position for the sound e, and then for the sound oo, but then you keep the larynx in the same kind of lowered position, then you might understand why there are so many cool pop singers who speak English. Might be that because they already have this beneficial position of the larynx for singing in their language. That's a strange kind of claim that I'm making, but if you think about it, for different languages we have different voices. You probably heard me speak Russian in some of my videos, and you might have noticed that the quality of the voice is different. And then this is exactly what I'm talking about. So different languages have different positions of the larynx and the different quality of the voice. That's the first thing you need to understand. And even if you have this, if you make the sound ah, you would this kind of quality of the voice, you will notice that the voice changes. That's what I'm trying to say for such a long time. So to practice this vocal quality, you might consider moving and shifting the position of the larynx a little bit. Not just artificially doing that, but notice how it shifts on its own when you follow all these different routes, okay? And don't worry about that. So you will have a different voice, and it's kind of this is fun. Like for me, that's kind of fun. Again, like the glitch in the game. So you kind of have a different voice. What is that? But this is how it works. Okay. So once again, let's go. Like a little bit like yawning, and then you go not inhale, but you exhale now. Right? And then you go ha, and then you go ah, and the tongue is in the back, as far in the back as possible. Okay? But now we've actually made this sound. If you noticed, I was stretching my lips a bit. Once again, focus on the stretched lips. Ah. And you see, and you remember what I told you last time, that if I want to move my tongue or my chest cavity forward, what do I need to do with the sides of my, the corners of the mouth, or with my elbows, right? What do? I stretch them. I go. So this makes the tongue go a little bit to the front, a little bit more forward, just a little bit. Okay? So this one, ah, and this one, the next one, where you don't stretch your lips, the same thing, but you go, ah. You see, I'm not stretching the corners of the mouth. Here I am, ah, and here I'm not, O. The tongue kind of is in the same position, but all these manipulations with the corners of the mouth, they make this one a little bit more forward than this one, a little bit further to the back. Okay? So once again, like yawning, and then exhale. The same position. Ha. Just stretch the lips a bit. Ha. Then you go. Ah. And then you don't stretch the lips and the tongue goes even further to the back. Ah. Right? And then with the same position of the tongue, make the lips as narrow as possible, but the tongue is in the same position for the ah. Once again, ah. And now the lips go. Oh. And you make the sound. What is that? It doesn't look, it doesn't sound similar to the Russian or. You see that here the tongue is as far in the back as possible, but for the Russian or sound, it's a little bit more forward. Okay? And that is the difference. So this is why we need all these special exercises to discover these areas in the mouth that are completely new for us. We never use them in the Russian. Like, you know, you would say mama if you're Ilya Lagutyenko, but you would never say mama, moya mama. You would never talk like that. Like, and again, if you know people who talk like that, I mean, if you know accents that have this in the Russian language, I'd like you to point that out. But I have never heard a single Russian person use these and or like that. So this is why we need to discover this interesting new area for us, right? Once again, let's try to put these new sounds on the chart, right? As I said, the sound R would be somewhere here because I stretched the lips a bit. R, right? And this one would be here. R. And now when you talk about this one, the tongue would be exactly the same. So focus on the same thing. But this sound I would put somewhere here. Or so you actually have this thing that you actually try to lower the tongue as much as possible, but you put the lips together and make them as tight as possible. So basically you have this kind of a stretching sensation between the tongue and the lips. And then you will find this sound somewhere here. You know, or that's the. And it's a very difficult sound to pronounce, especially in words like sports or. So that's the or. You also have this or sport. Sport, you also have this O. Then you go anywhere you have the O and R letters, you get the O sound. Or even this. Bought, right? So you also have the sad smiley face, which is bought, right? It's a very difficult sound. So this is why we're spending so much time on it. Right. If it doesn't work out, if you cannot do it, like after yawning and all of that, there are several tricks you can do, like in the book which I was reading, Lebedinskaya, Berta Yakovlevna Lebedinskaya, like if she's still alive, that's a big shout out to her. Like one of my favorite people in the world. Like she made this book, Phonetics practicum, по английскому языку, I don't remember the exact name, but like I spent most of my life like working with this book, and this book actually says that the sound ah, you pronounce it as if you're showing your throat to the doctor. Like, have you ever been to like a doctor, or have the doctor come to your house, and then they say, show me your throat, and then you go ah, and then they say no, bring the spoon, and then they put the spoon in the mouth, and then they press on the tongue, and then they lower the tongue to see your throat better. So actually, this metaphor is pretty effective. So if this is not working out, again, in the comfort of your own home, you take a spoon, a little teaspoon, don't take the tablespoon, right? And then you put it in the mouth, and then you lower the tongue as low as possible. Ah, and then try not to throw up. I'm kidding. But this is, again, this is how I first made the sound ah, is why this metaphor worked for me, is because, I had problems with my throat quite often when I was a kid, and the doctor would come, and she would bring the spoon, and I'm not ready to talk about it. No, not today. No, I can't. I will not cry this time. But the idea is that she tried to lower the tongue with the spoon, and I didn't like that very much. And I would not throw up, but it would be very unpleasant. So I kind of learned to lower the tongue without her interfering with the spoon, which I didn't like. So this is a good kind of experience that led to me discovering this area in the mouth, right, where you can put your tongue. So one thing, again, you can take a spoon, lower the tongue, try not to go too far in the back, otherwise not good, but then try to do it. At least you will hear your own voice actually pronounce this. Like if you go ah, and you will at least hear your own voice being able to pronounce the sound, and you will hear its difference between this and the Russian ah, right? So that could be useful. Another thing, so if you can see when I'm doing the sound versus ah, this thing, like dark and duck. So you have duck, that's a duck, and that's dark. So basically here you have the R, and here you have the right? And the you can look at the video now. When I pronounce the you see, I actually, like I said last time, I show the bottom teeth. And when I say I'm not doing it. I'm actually rolling this lower lip, rolling it back, kind of like as if I don't, like that. So once again, and now here you can go, ah, and then you roll it to the back. It could work. For some people, it can work, but and it worked for me. Again, if you have different experiences, then do that. And try to share it, because it's interesting how people discover this sound without all the weird exercises that I'm suggesting. Again, kind of unnatural for a Russian person, but we need to discover this area in the mouth because English. And because many other languages, like Chinese, ni hao, the hao thing, all these two sounds. Okay, like you will still have to do this stuff at some point if you don't just want to learn one language. These sounds, I'll repeat, they occur in different languages all over the world. So Portuguese, whatever. So think about that. So this is another trick, right? So the first one was what? The spoon. No, the first one was yawning. Yawning. The second one was what? A spoon. Spooning. No, spooning. Spoon. Just a spoon. Why did I cross that? No, like that. Spoon. But maybe it doesn't work for everybody. And the third one is rolling the lower lip. So that could help. And another thing here, number 4, is I would suggest, very strongly recommend, to protrude the lower jaw. Make the jaw go forward for these. Why? Because if you don't, and if you put the tongue too much in the back, like ah, for the ah specifically, right? Especially for this, the ah sound. If you put it all the way to the back where it should be, and you don't move the jaw forward, you see if it moves forward a bit. Ah. If you don't do that, you would get the sound like oh. The tongue would be blocking your the hole for the air, so you will not be able to make the sound at all. You would make the sound oh, and then suffocate, and then don't want that to happen. Again, disclaimer: consult your doctor before doing that, and blah blah blah. But it's important because English. Right. They don't teach that at school, do they? I mean, very rarely, so to say. Okay, yawning, a spoon, roll the lower lip, ah, and then protrude. Protrude. Protrude the jaw. Protrude. What does it mean? Protrude. Make forward. Like make something go forward. Right. What else? Yeah, there could be one other way you can actually practice the sound lying on your back. So when you lie on your back, then the tongue actually rolls back as well, and you can practice lying on your back. But I wouldn't even write that. But you can try it. I mean, the thing is that you can try different ways, because this is kind of difficult. These sounds are very, very difficult, especially when you then will try to connect it to other sounds. So I'm sorry, that's English, and we need to try and practice it, right? So, but then when you talk about duck versus dark, it's not that difficult to differentiate as long as you realize the nature of this coming from the kind of, they are relatives, and this having a totally different nature. So that's the thing, that's all the way down and back. I guess for now it's all I have to say. So I don't think I can say anything else about these sounds. This thing is difficult. Try to make it work for you. Use all the different tricks. If you come up with new tricks, then by all means share them and tell me about them, because I'm kind of curious about how to teach these sounds efficiently. They are very important, because this R is a part of this I. This R is also kind of good for the an O. They are very important for the oi. So these two diphthongs, they will be pronounced with these sounds. So again, I is a very commonly used diphthong, the diphthong I, like hi, my, fine, etc. Right? So they will all have, all these words will have the sound R. So try to work on that. Not walk, but work. Right? Try to work on that. Okay. Okay, if I remember something else, I will tell you next time. But for now, practice this route and have fun. And I'll see you next time.